broadcasting just steps away from the world-famous Miami University campus in the heart of scenic Oxford, Ohio. Just outside the city of Cincinnati, you're listening to Don't Encourage This, a series of conversations with artists, creatives, interfaith voices, and nerds. I'm your host, Mark Von Bullock. I'm a minister in the Presbyterian Church USA. My guest this episode is Mary Reber. Mary appeared in the third season of the legendary TV series Twin Peaks, which originally aired on ABC from 1990 to 1991, and then returned nearly 25 years later for a third season on Showtime entitled Twin Peaks: The Return in 2017. The revival season was written and executive produced by original series co-creators Mark Frost and David Lynch, with Lynch himself returning to direct every single episode. Mary Reber holds a very special place in the world of Twin Peaks. Not only does she appear as a character in The Return, but in real life, she actually lives in the house that served as the filming location for the home of fictional character Laura Palmer and the Palmer family, both in the TV series and in the film Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. The home appears in several scenes in the third season, and Mary shares with us some behind-the-scenes secrets behind filming these key moments in the Twin Peaks story. In addition to appearing in the show, Mary also offers tours of the Laura Palmer house, located in Everett, Washington, to fans of the series. Customized tours of this iconic filming location can be scheduled at www.visitpalmerhouse.com. In January 2025, David Lynch sadly passed away from complications related to emphysema. During our conversation, Mary shares some of her memories of Lynch, not just the film director on set, but the person. Mary also reflects on how offering tours of the Palmer house has allowed her to connect with the fan community from around the world, and how their stories have touched her own life in deeply personal ways. It's an honor and a privilege to welcome Mary Reber as a guest on my show. Before we begin, however, I want to offer a clear warning to our listeners. This conversation with Mary Reber contains major spoilers, big spoilers for both the original Twin Peaks series and for the third season, The Return. Mary appears during significant moments of the show when big things are happening, and it's simply not possible to talk about her experience filming without talking about those spoilers. So if you haven't seen the original Twin Peaks or The Return, consider this your disclaimer. If you're not concerned about spoilers and just want to enjoy the conversation, that's totally fine too. I'll offer one final warning in just a few minutes before Mary and I dive into the weeds, but we will be getting into the big secrets. Clutch the pew for support if you must. Without any further ado, let's dive into a place even more strange and terrifying than the Black Lodge, the 9th episode of Don't Encourage This. Let's talk to Mary Reber. Mary, thank you so much for joining us on Don't Encourage Us. It's such a pleasure to get to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Mary, before we get into it, I just want to let our listeners know, I want to put a great big spoiler warning at the front of this episode. If you're listening to the show, if you have not seen the third season of Twin Peaks, The Return on Showtime, if you are worried about spoilers, please pause this podcast and go watch it and come back and listen to this later. Or if you don't care about spoilers and just want to hear the conversation, that's fine too. But I want to put a disclaimer just right up front, because some of the things I want to talk to you about your experience on Twin Peaks, as you know, it overlaps with some pretty big spoilers on the show, and I would love to talk about that, but I don't want to ruin the show for folks who haven't seen it. So warning. That's for folks who might be listening. Does that sound good to you?
It does. And spoilers really almost don't make any difference, because people watch it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times and sometimes still don't know what really happened. So
that's true.
But I do get this. I mean, there's some key things that happen that you probably don't want to know unless you watch it.
Yes, exactly. But that's a good point. In the world of David Lynch,
yes,
even if we tell you what happens, it's really hard to tell someone exactly what's happened.
It's true.
Oh, well, Mary, for folks who are fans of Twin Peaks and who may not know you as well as others, you live in a very special house in real life, and I was wondering if you could tell us why the house that you live in is so special.
This is the first house that my ex and I bought after we raised our kids. We were looking for a place to live. Everett offered a little more house than like Seattle or some of the suburbs just north of Seattle. I like the established older homes, the homes that have a lot of history. So we came out looking this way and made an offer on a house up the street. It didn't go through. So we looked at this flyer, looked at this house, the picture on the flyer, and thought, oh, this looks like a really nice house, Dutch colonial, almost 100 years old. Let's take a peek. And I didn't know it was Laura Palmer's house because I hadn't seen Fire Walk with Me.
Yes.
So I had only watched Twin Peaks like 5 years before. And so I didn't have to wait the whole 25 years. Thank goodness.
Lucky ducky.
Bonus. I had mentioned the address to my brother-in-law, and he goes, that's Laura Palmer's house. And I go, no, it's not. And he goes, yes, it is. And looked it up, and sure enough, it's Laura Palmer's house. And came through, to make a long story short, it needed a lot of work.
Okay.
And that's what kind of kept us from, they didn't advertise it as the Palmer house, which was kind of strange. But we looked through it, and my ex just said, hey, I think I can fix this up. And like I say, 100-year-old homes really need a lot of work, need a lot of care.
Oh, sure.
And so we made an offer and they accepted it. So the rest is history.
That's beautiful. Now, and did you say that you had seen the show a bit? What was it, a few years before buying the house? About 5 years before? Is that right?
About 5 years before, because I was raising kids at the time when it first came on.
Okay.
And I thought, I just can't watch another nighttime what I thought was a soap opera.
Yes.
And I thought there was more things I was watching on TV, and I thought, no, because I had 3 little kids at the time, and that came first.
Yes.
Just to add this to the story, my son passed away 3 years ago in the home here.
Oh, Mary, I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you. And I think that has really added to this story quite a bit, though. He's the one who told me to watch Twin Peaks. He said, Mom, you got to watch this show.
Oh, my goodness.
So he's actually the one who kind of propelled me into binge watch season 1 and 2 and Fire Walk with Me and Missing Pieces and all that.
Right.
So that's what makes this house more special. I even have like a little homage to him too. I've got a little table set up with Laura Palmer's prom picture and an ashtray with cigarette butts, which would be Sarah's cigarette butts, but they're actually my son's.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of my homage to him. So I point that out when guests come. Yeah.
That's really beautiful, Mary. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
It adds a lot of personal connections with the house and the show and all the many ways that this has intersected with your life over the years.
So many synchronicities you find out that draw people together.
Yeah.
If you are available to just sit back and kind of watch them happen. So there's quite a few.
Yeah. Now, when you were watching Twin Peaks for the first time, when your son had said, "Hey, Mom, you really got to watch the show," were you a fan of the show? Were you really into it, or were you sort of watching it more casually? Or what was your first experience with the show like?
I really loved the show. I just absolutely thought it was like one of the best things. I loved the music. I loved the actors. I think what drew me more to it is, even though there's elements of comedic humor, there's soap opera type stuff, there's a little bit of everything, nostalgia. I think what drew me, though, it's not mindless TV.
No, it's not.
I mean, some people may watch it, but it goes deep.
Yes,
it really
does.
goes deep.
Yes, it does.
And I think that's what drew me more than anything, is we needed something that made us think a little bit, that didn't give us the finely wrapped package and the perfect ending and everything. I think it's just one of those things that I like cliffhangers, and it's definitely a cliffhanger.
Boy, is it ever.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
I really like that description that you gave, Mary, because I agree wholeheartedly. So I got my partner to watch Twin Peaks for the first time, probably, 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I kind of described it to her before she started watching, and I tried not to describe it too much. I think it's better if you just sort of go in and experience it.
Absolutely.
It starts off feeling like, oh, this is just going to be a goofy, quirky soap opera that's a little offbeat and it's kind of a parody a little bit. But as it goes on, You're absolutely right. You realize that this is getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and there are layers, multiple layers to what this show is about. And I think that's especially true getting into the Showtime third season, but it really becomes more and more profound exploration of grief and loss and trauma and all these and many other themes. But it's a slow burn because when you first watch it, you're like, oh my gosh, what is this goofy show? And then as it goes on, you're like, oh wow, this is a lot more than just a goofy show.
Exactly. And David Lynch has a quote. It says, when you watch Twin Peaks, he said, don't try to understand it, experience it.
Yes.
And I thought that was perfect because if you sit there and you try, like on TV, a lot of times, like crime shows and stuff, you're sitting there trying to figure out, well, who did it? And it throws you for a loop. But if you sit there and just experience it, it presents itself really well as just an incredible piece of art.
And I think that's especially true here's where we're going to get into major spoiler territory, folks. I think that's especially true in the scene in Twin Peaks: The Return that you appeared in, because you appear. So let me give a little bit of background. The house that you live in was used as the Palmer house in Fire Walk with Me and in Twin Peaks: The Return. I think maybe a little bit in the original series as well. I think
it was the pilot episode.
There we go.
The quick story behind that is David started filming at a house in Monroe, which is about 30 miles from here.
Okay.
He decided not to use it. So he sent his location gal out this way to look for something kind of, Americana, established neighborhood. Then he started filming here, but they did the pilot here, and then they went down to LA and did the rest of it on a stage, soundstage.
Yeah. Okay.
And then came back a year and a half later for Fire Walk with Me.
Yes. And it's especially prominent in Fire Walk with Me.
Right.
Yeah. You appear, Mary, in the very last scene of the very last episode of Twin Peaks: The Return.
I do.
I think this is probably the very last scene of Twin Peaks that we're ever going to see.
It's like the last 4 minutes. Yeah.
It is. I'm going to try to describe the scene without giving away everything that happens, but I want to set a little bit of just the mood. It takes place at the Palmer house at night, and it's really eerie. It's a creepy, haunting finale to this story.
Mm-hmm.
And you appear in that scene as a character alongside Kyle MacLachlan, who plays Special Agent Dale Cooper, and Cheryl Lee, who plays a woman named Carrie Page, who seems to be a sort of multiversal variant of Laura Palmer, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
And there was quite a bit of filming in and around your home to create this climactic moment in the story. Well, I wanted to ask you, so how did this come to be? How did the production reach out to you? How did you get involved in the show? And as an actress, no less.
I'm not an actress. So
you are now.
That was the fun. That was the fun part, but that was something David likes to do. He likes to take real people. Cheryl Lee was the headshot gal. So he dug through a bunch of headshots to find just the right girl to be wrapped in plastic. What happened here was we had just moved in. It had only been 2 months. We were out running around, came back, and still kind of basically moving in. But we found a notice at the door that said that a director from Hollywood would be coming out. They wanted to use our home and had the look and feel of the house that they wanted to use. And it's just when the simultaneous tweets of Lynch and Frost came out saying that gum you like is going to come back.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, so they were very secretive about it. They said, call the location guy, let him know that you're available to talk to him. He came out that night, said the director would be coming out, but he didn't say who. It was January 1st of 2015. Look outside, and there's David Lynch and Sabrina Sutherland, and who's his executive producer, and Scott Cameron, who's his first AD. They came in, walked around for about 45 minutes. David didn't talk about too much at all, just basically said that they wanted to do this. Like I said, everything was just really super secret.
Sure.
And then he came back again in April, July, and then October for filming. So they were here 12 days for filming. It was in April, so it was exactly 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
He was working at the door. I actually posted a few pictures on my Instagram if anybody wants to see of him standing at the door. And he's basically kind of recreating or creating the scene that he wanted for the finale. So I didn't know what he was doing, but he kind of was working there. I was trying to listen, couldn't hear anything. He came into the kitchen and he said, "Are you an actress?" And I said, "No." "Have you ever acted?" "No." "Would you like to do a small part in the movie?" And I was a little hesitant because it's like really out of my league and not in my comfort zone. But I said, "Sure, sure." And he said, "It's not for sure. You'd be in your own home. You'd be wearing your own clothes. You'd go to hair and makeup. We'll send you a script if everything goes through." And then he came again in July, and I hadn't gotten a script yet, but I got it in September.
Oh, wow.
Everything was just really super secret, but that was really cool. It was kind of during a really good time in my life for me to kind of step out. I was in a marriage for like 30 years. That was less than a great marriage, and it kind of gave me a little bit of shot in the arm. So it was a great timing.
So you found a note on your door saying that a Hollywood director wants to film at your home. And this is right after you moved in. Did I hear that right?
It was 2 months after we moved in.
Holy
and it
moly.
said, "Your house has the look and feel of the house that we want to use for a movie. And call the location guy." The location guy came out and said a director would be coming out about the 1st of January. But he didn't say it was David Lynch.
Okay.
So I didn't know if it was going to be David Lynch. So I'm looking outside January 1st, and out steps, you could see that gray hair, and it's David. And I'm not one of those who's really super starstruck, and I hadn't seen a lot of Lynch's works. I had seen a few things, but not very much. So
Sure.
I think just the fact that I was more comfortable than maybe a lot of people would have been. And we just chatted, and I think that's what he likes is he likes just chatting with people, kind of
Yeah.
small. He doesn't like small talk. He just likes to chat, and I wasn't like fawning all over him. And
Right.
I think that kind of helped.
Yeah, that you weren't like slobbering all over him every 5 minutes.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
not at all.
So how did they? Well, okay. So first of all, I have so many questions. So when they send you the script, well, first of all, did you know this was going to be the finale of Twin Peaks, or was it just a scene that might?
No.
Okay.
The only one who read the whole script was Kyle MacLachlan. He went to David Lynch's home and had to sit inside the home and read the whole script. He couldn't take it out of David's home.
Oh, wow.
So with a lot of coffee,
Of course.
a lot of coffee, patience, and he read the script, and none of the actors in the finale knew when their parts were. So we all sat and watched every week, just like everybody else. We got to go to the premiere, the red carpet, and do all that. But we all kind of looked at each other. Nobody knew who anybody was going to be unless you were in it before
Okay.
and recognized somebody. So I sat through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way till 17 ended. And I thought, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be in the last one.
There's only one episode left. Must be.
I know. And then there's only 4 minutes left.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
watching all the way through 8. And I thought, and I knew I wasn't on the cutting room floor. Sabrina had told me that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I knew it was happening. But what was surreal is sitting in my home, watching on the TV that Sarah watched in the living room in my home. That's my TV set.
Oh, that's
Knowing that they were parking out front, walking up my stairs, and I'm answering my own door. So, I mean, to meta, I guess is the word for that. I don't know. It was really strange.
yeah. So how did they prep your home to film this scene? And I mean, what was it like having David Lynch in your house, having these production folks in your house? What was it like?
It was incredible. It was really what I needed. It really was. It was really cool. When they rent your home, they rent your whole home. They were here for 12 days.
Okay.
They basically had to transform my whole living room to look like the pilot,
Oh, wow.
or Fire Walk with Me. So they had to empty it out. They had to put cardboard down, gold carpet. I still have the set curtains from season 3 in my living room
Oh, cool.
with nicotine stains on them. That's why you have to come out and visit. They just recreated without having any of the original furniture. They had to recreate my living room to look like the pilot.
Wow.
And then outside, if Sarah's not taking care of the inside, so she's basically living in her living room from the time Laura passed and just grieving. And
When you say Sarah, you're referring to Sarah Palmer, the character. This is Laura Palmer's mom in the show.
right, Grace Zabriskie.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they had to do to the outside, if she's not taking care of the inside too they had to put tarp over the whole front lawn. and put pieces of dead sod or grass over the whole top.
Oh, wow.
To make it look dead, just for Hawk coming to the door, his scene with Grace.
Yeah.
And then insert fake bushes and paint those to make those look dead. So if you saw the outside of the house, I was the only one on the block with a house that looked like nobody was taking care of it.
That's right. There is a scene earlier in the show where Hawk comes to visit Sarah Palmer earlier in the season, and they have this very, very strange conversation. But you're right. We see the exterior of the house during that scene.
Right.
It does look like Sarah maybe hasn't been keeping it up as well, and that something is not quite right with her.
Yeah, he was doing after, I think it was maybe 15 or 16 even, where he was doing that wellness check.
Yes, that's it.
She was acting erratic at the grocery store. I don't want to say too much. But then he comes to the door, and so all that work was done just for him to come to the door to check on Sarah. And so basically, Hawk and Sarah did their scenes on a Wednesday. We did the finale scene on a Friday night.
Oh, so
but there
cool.
was a lot of prep. That's why they were here 12 days. There's a lot of prep. And when they're filming in your home, they have to create it to be a location, like a filming location. They need a sound room. They need a room where David can go and talk to the actors. Every room serves a purpose. So when they use your home, they use your whole home. My kitchen was the sound room.
Oh my gosh.
And when they're filming, there's a good maybe 20, 30 people inside.
Wow, that's a lot of people to have in your house.
It's a lot, but you've got lighting people, you've got sound people, you've got makeup people, you've got David Lynch, the gal who does make sure that you say your lines properly. It's incredible. It was fun to watch. Really fun.
Your whole house basically just turned into a film studio, essentially, for filming this scene.
Yes. Yes. I went up into my room. I was thinking, okay, they're not up there. I went up there and there's a chair that says Grace Zabriskie. So she was using my room as her kind of her waiting room. But when they do their scenes, they come for the day, they do their scene, and then they're gone. They don't stay.
Yeah. Yeah. When they're filming the finale with you and Kyle MacLachlan and with Carrie Page with Cheryl Lee, I almost called her Laura Palmer. Anyway, when they're filming the finale scene, what was the energy like during filming? I mean, it's a very eerie scene, but I mean, this is also a movie production. What was it like when they were creating those moments in the show?
Oh man, it was just nonstop. So the street in front of me and the street behind me run parallel, and I've got my garage in the backyard in my backyard, there's my garage. So there's lighting trucks, sound trucks, and everything. There's like about 150 people out where the road divides, right by where Kyle says, "What year is this?"
Yes.
So they were standing out there. He was going out. He was talking to these people and everything. But in this day of social media with people's phones and everything, they had to make sure people weren't like recording.
Right.
And one guy was, and actually got sent to TMZ the next morning, and Kyle and Cheryl walking up the stairs got on TMZ, but it was hard to tell at night who everybody was. So I think they knew it was Kyle, but they didn't know it was Cheryl Lee. But it was intense. I mean, they spent the majority of the time that they were here, which was the 3 times before filming, outside. And that's what threw me. Is why are they not inside? Why are they not working on details on the inside as much as they're outside? There's lighting issues. There's, they had to figure out how dark is it. They had to send somebody out prior to filming to see just how dark my street was.
Oh, wow.
To determine the lighting that they needed. So there's a lot that went into that. So they filmed Cheryl and Kyle coming up and down the stairs about an hour and a half because they did different takes.
Sure.
And then they came in and we kind of regrouped in the living room, Kyle, Cheryl, and myself and the makeup gal and David. And then it's 11 o'clock and David goes, okay, well, we need to start filming. And he obviously didn't say the finale because, like I say, everything was quiet.
Right.
So a lot of energy outside. It was just... you could feel it. I mean, you could really feel it. And then Cheryl did her screams after we were done filming. So David, on the Z to A box set, that's a really good box set to get because there's 25 minutes of behind the scenes for each part.
Yes.
So there was 25 minutes of behind the scenes for part 18, and part of it was him directing her on how to scream out front.
Oh, wow.
So to me, that was really worth it. And I heard her scream. She had to do that like 3 different screams, and then it was layered.
Oh, wow.
And they sent a notice around to all the neighbors within distance of them being able to hear it. So they sent it to pretty much a lot of the neighbors in my neighborhood here, said that there was going to be a film where there was going to be some screaming. Do not call the policeman.
Yes.
There's going to be police presence, but there is going to be some loud noises.
Yeah.
So they made sure they covered their bases as far as that goes, too. So it was intense, but it only took 2 takes at the door, which was cool.
Now, you're in this scene as a character named Alice Tremont. Did David give you any direction? Did he just sort of let you do your thing? What was that like?
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of how he directs, is he doesn't fill your head with what he wants you to, how he wants you to stand, how he wants you to portray yourself. I think he likes to go with raw emotion.
Yeah.
So how would Mary be if she answered the door as a non-actress?
Yeah.
She would be nervous. She would be excited. How else would you act if you had an FBI agent come to your door at 11 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
So those natural emotions just kind of flow through. And the only other thing he mentioned was to wait 10 seconds between our exchanges. So Kyle would say, Special Agent Dale Cooper, Sarah Palmer here. And I'd stand and look at him for 10 seconds. You can edit time out. You can't edit it back in.
That's true.
And what does that do when you're talking to somebody and they don't answer you right away? It builds anxiety.
Yeah.
So he does that in a lot of his other movies too. So that was kind of cool. That's why it seems very awkward at the door, because there isn't a natural quick response to each other's exchange.
That's a really fascinating. I didn't know that, but you're exactly right. And that is true in a lot of David Lynch's other work, where just the way that the characters will interact, there is a kind of a sort of Lynchian anxiety or tension in a lot of his work. And that's a really fascinating, creative, and imaginative directing trick to accomplish that, to just wait 10 seconds. Because you're right. For one thing, it gives you a lot of space in the edit if you need to edit things down. But it probably just when you talk like that, it just makes things just kind of awkward, which adds to the tension to the scene.
It does, and I'll do that to guests when they come here.
Oh, neat.
I'll look at. Well, I'll have them say something to me, and I'll just stare at them for like 10 seconds, and I go, "What does that do to you?" And they go, "Well, it makes me feel really uncomfortable."
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he's going for there. So if you see like Lost Highway, where Bill Pullman is talking to Robert Blake, that exchange is already strange on its own with the makeup and everything else.
Oh,
and
certainly.
just you can tell that there's that crazy pause in between their exchange. I like people to respond to me right away, or it makes me feel really like I need to either start talking, or I just feel real fidgety if somebody doesn't answer me right away. And it was already strange anyway.
Oh, sure. Certainly.
Because, it was a strange exchange.
Now, you are acting in the scene alongside Kyle MacLachlan, who's playing Special Agent Dale Cooper, an iconic TV character, and Kyle MacLachlan is just a formidable actor. I mean, he's just one of the great actors.
He's incredible.
What were Kyle and Cheryl like in real life? Because you got to interact with them in real life, not just as their characters, but as Kyle and Cheryl Lee. What were they like?
Kyle is just he's just the sweetest guy. He's kind of a dad joke guy. So he does dad jokes, but he does them really well. I mean, he's got a really good Instagram social media presence too. He does a lot of little Instagram things that are kind of fun to watch. But I think going to hair and makeup, sitting with them for maybe 45 minutes to an hour and just having a little exchange really helped.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I kind of knew him a little bit, and I kind of knew her, because I sat right next to her and she just started talking to me, and Cheryl is like just one of the sweetest, most humble people I've ever met. She is just a wonderful, wonderful human. I had a chance just to chat with them for a little bit. And then, so the scene at the door felt a little more comfortable for me.
Oh, good.
And I think that David had us practice our lines out front. And that was interesting. That's when he presented that 10-second pause.
Okay.
He said, Mary, you need to pause, because he had us practice. And he said, you need to do this, and this is why. It only took 2 takes at the door, but I think after our first practice, Kyle knocked on the door. I answered, and he goes, trick or treat. So he was already like throwing little like dad joke type things in there. And he was just, then there was one time where I think after the first practice, he came into David, and usually don't change David's lines. If he's got a script, you stick with the script.
Yeah, because he and Mark Frost wrote this script.
Right. So he said, can I exchange the pulling my badge out of my pocket to just wearing a lanyard? And David said, no, I want you to do the old fashioned pulling your badge out of the pocket.
Okay.
That was that. You don't question it again.
Even if you're Kyle MacLachlan, you still got to do what the director says.
That's right. That's right. But he and David have a really good rapport. I think it was after the first take, David goes, that was nearly flawless. And his first AD, Scott, said, you mean it wasn't perfect? And David goes, nothing's perfect. So David always at least does it twice.
Yeah.
But Kyle, after the first take, goes, you did a great job.
Oh.
Cheryl goes, you're doing great. And that just kind of like, it just kind of like makes you feel like kind of pumped up, like, hey, I can do this one more time.
Yeah.
So when David said that's a wrap, it's like, thank God.
I love that. You mean it wasn't perfect? Nothing's perfect. That is just a great response. That's
a typical Lynch response. Nothing's perfect.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, and your performance really is wonderful. I really don't think that they were blowing smoke, Mary. It really, it's a great scene. It's a weird and creepy scene, but it's terrific.
I think he gave me just enough lines. I mean, if it was more than that, here's a non-actor. And I think the way he auditions people too is interesting. He doesn't have you stand there and hold. He has an idea in his head of who he wants.
Okay.
And if this person in front of him, after he talks to them for a bit, just normal conversation like we're having, he's listening to the cadence in your voice, your little mannerisms, your personality. Does that personality fit who I have in my head for this character?
Right. Makes sense.
And that's how he actually auditions. He doesn't, if you're standing there holding a paper and reading, you're not really being yourself.
Yeah, sure.
So he watches you talk to other people. That's what he does. And I think that's more authentic.
And that's just good directing, because your natural presence, that's what's ultimately going to translate onto the screen anyway. So it sounds like that's his way of trying to suss out, is this going to be a good fit? And it sounds like it worked.
Exactly. And that's how Frank Silva, who was Bob, was found upstairs in Laura's room.
That's right. That's right. Mary, in this scene, you play a somewhat mysterious and enigmatic character named Alice Tremond, who speaks to Agent Cooper in this final scene of Twin Peaks. Now, hardcore fans of Twin Peaks know that name has a significance in the show. Now, bear with me, folks, because I'm going to go down the nerd rabbit hole for a second. In the original Twin Peaks series, there was also a mysterious character named Mrs. Tremond, but she was a little different from the character that you play.
Mm-hmm.
At least it seems like she was. She shows up in season 2. Donna Hayward is delivering a meal to her home as part of the Meals on Wheels program. And Mrs. Tremond is this eerie older woman who lives with a grandson who does magic tricks and wears a mask. And it's all very strange. It's a little creepy.
And that's actually David Lynch's son.
Is it really? The kid in the mask?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No kidding.
He's the one who's holding the Garmin Bozia in the chair with Mrs. Tremond. That's David Lynch's son.
I did not know that. That's so cool.
He looks like a really young David Lynch.
He does look like a really young David,
Yeah.
but I didn't put that together while I was watching the show. That's so cool. So in the original series, this other Mrs. Tremond gives Donna a letter that ends up
Correct.
leading the detectives to a major clue in the Laura Palmer case.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where it gets weird, though. So later in the story, Donna finds out that nobody named Mrs. Tremond actually lives at that address. The real Tremonds had moved out. And so it begs this question for the audience. Who was this strange older woman? It's very strongly implied that she and her grandson are supernatural spirit entities from what's called the Black Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
And then 25 years later, you show up on the doorstep of the Palmer house, greeting Agent Cooper and introducing yourself as Mrs. Tremond. And none of this is ever fully explained. It all just sort of adds to the eerie, dreamlike quality of this story. Now, here's the question I wanted to ask you. David Lynch, over the years, has been notorious for not wanting to explain anything.
Correct.
He doesn't like to comment on fan theories very much. Whatever you think it means, that's what it means. That's sort of been his...
That's actually pretty good.
Thank you. That's sort of been his position over the years. And fair enough. I mean, I can respect that. I think that's a fair position. But I wanted to ask you if you have any thoughts about what that scene means, because it seems to me your interpretation, according to David Lynch, is just as valid as anybody else's. Do you have an interpretation of what's really going on there?
Well, Mrs. Tremont is the one who, when Laura's coming out from the Double R and putting the meals on wheels, the meals actually into the car, that older Mrs. Tremont that was seen on Seinfeld and some other motions for her to come over, and then hands her that picture and said, this would look nice on your wall.
She does.
Yeah. And so her grandson is standing there with her as well. So, that was two things I wasn't supposed to talk about after filming is who do you think your character is? Because like you just said, none of us really understand. I believe she's probably a Black Lodge entity.
Sure. Because
she's seen in that room above the convenience store with Bob and the dancing man and they're all up there and she's with them.
Yes.
So she's in above the convenience store. Somebody came here and visited one time. One guy said, "I'll bet you're going to be a Tremont." And I said, "Why would you say that?" And he goes, "Because Tremonts take over homes."
Ooh, interesting.
Tremonts take over homes because if you see Fire Walk with Me too, that they were there for a portion of the time and then all of a sudden the trailer's gone.
That's right. That's right. Oh, that's so interesting. I just got a chill when you said that.
I know. The full-on interpretation would do it a disservice, I think, than just having it be kind of ambiguous. Though Tremonts are found in Twin Peaks, Chalfonts are in Fire Walk with Me. But when I turn and ask the person in the living room, who did we buy the house from? And he said Chalfont, to Mrs. Chalfont. So the name Tremont and Chalfont from Twin Peaks and Fire Walk with Me are used in that particular response, which is kind of interesting.
That is kind of interesting. Well, David Lynch didn't tell me that I couldn't say what my interpretation of it is. So I sort of feel like these Black Lodge spirits, whether it's the dancing dwarf in the Red Room or the Tremonts. My experience of Twin Peaks is that these are entities that sort of transcend time and space and maybe even timelines. Mm-hmm. The Red Room seems to exist outside of time altogether.
Right.
And these entities seem to be able to change their shape, too. I mean, the man from another place turns into an electric tree or something in the return.
Right.
So I sort of feel like I don't fully understand how these entities operate. And I don't think that I'm meant to, but I feel like they can appear in different circumstances for different reasons to give the characters whatever they may need, even if it may not necessarily make sense to us in mortal ways. That's just that's the impression I get from watching the show. But I didn't ask Mark Frost, so I have to.
Right. Well, Philip Jeffries actually turned into what looks like a teapot. Too.
He did.
So Mark adds a lot. He adds the lore. He adds the mystery. He adds the history. I've listened to a lot of his interviews, and he's a really crazy, intelligent person.
Oh, he's a genius. He's brilliant.
He is. And the balance between David and Mark is perfect.
Yes.
Because I think both are needed.
Yes, I agree.
I think they both really offered. I mean, I've even heard things like, and I'm not saying this is true, but I've even heard like Mark Frost's ending would be 17, David Lynch's ending would be 18.
I've heard that too.
That's people just talking, but I think it's necessary to see Fire Walk with Me to give you a better understanding of season 3.
I agree. I have a friend who we went to college together, and we were both, and still are both, huge Twin Peaks nuts. And he, at least the last time I spoke to him, had not watched The Return yet. I've been pestering him forever and ever and ever.
Oh man, he's got to see it.
Yeah, and he hadn't watched season 2 in a long time. I think he'd rewatched season 1, hadn't watched season 2. And so he was asking me, he was like, I want to watch The Return. I'm not sure if I want to go back and watch all of Twin Peaks all over again because he knew I had seen it. He was like, what do I need to watch? And I said, if I were you, I would make sure that you rewatch at least the finale of season 2, and you should probably rewatch Fire Walk with Me.
Definitely Fire Walk with Me. Definitely Fire Walk with Me. Yeah. Yes, I think so too.
But I agree with you about what you say about Mark Frost. I think Mark Frost does not get nearly as much credit for his enormous contributions.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree with you.
And I think that you're right. I think they both of them on their own create something special, but when they're together, I think that's really the magic sauce. I think that's why The Return works so well. They both worked on that together, and they knew what the other one needed to make it work.
I think so too. And what I do find though is some of the fans, so I've been doing this for 9 years here, and you talk to a lot of people, and some people just, they didn't like 3. It just didn't resonate with them.
Yes.
But those tend to be more Twin Peaks, cherry pie, nostalgic type stuff fans. And then the true David Lynch people, the Lynchian people that like all that Lynch thing, like season 3.
Right.
And that a lot of them will say, yeah, that's it, because a lot of them like his work. So you got a couple different types of fans. I've had some come that haven't even seen the pilot yet. Some have come and haven't seen 3.
Oh,
so
wow.
I have to alter my tours accordingly, kind of like what you had to do with the disclaimer at the beginning of this particular piece.
Yes, I can understand that. Yeah. I wanted to share just a quick story with you. I met David Lynch years and years ago.
Oh, you did?
I did. He came and spoke at my college. And it's weird. A number of years ago, I was doing a different podcast, and I got to interview Krista Bell, who plays Tammy Preston.
Tammy Preston, yeah.
And I told her this story while the show was still airing. Not all of the episodes had aired yet. David Lynch came and spoke at my college. This would have been in 2005, I want to say. And, I mean, we had been watching Twin Peaks on DVD. This is back when Netflix would send DVDs out in the mail. And we had just burned through the whole show. I had a friend who had these old VHS tapes of season 2 because those weren't on DVD yet. And we watched Fire Walk with Me. And there's that scene, of course, in Fire Walk with Me with Philip Jeffries, David Bowie. And he has that famous line, "We're not going to talk about Judy. We're not going to talk about Judy at all. We're going to leave her out of it." And for years and years, we had no idea what the hell he was talking about, because there is no Judy in at least in the show or in the movie. Of course, we know Judy comes back in The Return, but we didn't know that was going to happen at the time.
But we're not going to talk about her.
No, we're not going to talk about her at all. And so David Lynch comes in and speaks to my college. We had this giant theater, and he came in, and it was a packed house. The whole college came out to hear him talk. And he was talking about transcendental meditation. And then afterwards, there was this really swanky after party that David was going to come to that was invitation only. It was not open to the public. It was not open to the students. You had to have you had to get an invitation from someone who was connected to the thing. Anyway, I think they just didn't want all of us nerds like harassing him all night. And my friend Josh and I, we were just driven nuts about this whole Judy business. We're like, who the hell is Judy? And we said, we've got to find a way to meet David Lynch and ask him, because we didn't know back then he didn't like to talk about this stuff. We were just like, no, if we ask him, he'll tell us. And so we snuck into this party. We snuck in.
Oh, that's funny. See, that's what I would do too.
Yeah. Josh had a friend who was working the door, and he slipped him a little something, and he was like, all right, just get in here. And so and it was so obvious when we walked in that we were so out of place, like we didn't belong there, because everyone's wearing suit and ties and formal outfits, and we just looked like dumb college students. So I see David Lynch. He's surrounded by all these film professors, and they're just like, oh, so in your film, the symbolism. He's just listening politely, and I'm sitting there I was like, oh, I don't know, should I go talk to him? And Josh is like, I don't know, man. I feel like we're about to get in trouble. Maybe we should just sneak. And I was like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I walk over, and I position myself into this conversation that I have not been invited to. And David Lynch is the most unpretentious guy.
Isn't he, though?
Yeah, he was surrounded by a whole bunch of very pretentious film people. He's the least pretentious person there in this conversation. And he makes eye contact with me, and he smiles. And so I say, Mr. Lynch, I love your work, and I wanted to know if I could ask you a question. And he goes, sure. And I said, Mr. Lynch, it's a really obscure question. And he smiles and goes, I love obscure questions.
You actually do a good Lynch.
Well, thank you. And so I explained, we've been watching Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me. There's a scene with David Bowie. He's going on about Judy. Who the hell is Judy? And so I said, so Mr. Lynch, I was wondering if I could ask you, who is Judy? And he smiled and just shook his head. He didn't say a word.
Did he really?
Yeah, he
gosh.
just smiled and shook his head. And then one of the film professors laughed, looked at me and said, he's not gonna tell you. And so we laughed and I said, well, thank you. But he was like super nice and he let us take pictures with him. And he was just the sweetest guy.
He really is. He really is.
But I told that story to Krista Bell, who plays Tammy Preston, and she was like, not knowing that like the very next night they were going to air the episode where they talk about Judy.
Oh my gosh.
And so she's like, in this episode, you can hear me talking about, and she's just playing dumb. She's like, oh, Judy, I don't know who that is. When she's in the scene that's about to air where they talk. So she did a really great job of,
Well, yeah, but you got to remember too, that we didn't know when our parts were.
That's true. That's a good point.
She didn't know. She probably didn't know that one was going to be aired. So it's like, yeah, I mean, like they filmed the Log Lady first because she passed 4 days later.
Yes, indeed.
And then they went to Double R and then they came here. So like Kyle says, we filmed very early on up in Washington, then the whole next year. And then it didn't even come out until 2017. So she probably didn't even know that was going to be on the next day. Coming to her defense. I mean,
she was just doing her job because I know they had all been sworn to secrecy. They couldn't talk about anything.
Oh my gosh. This was really, really super secret.
Yeah. But I was really impressed. But it was so surreal because I just told her that story. And then that night, I think it was the episode where the bad Cooper goes to the Dutchman's and he meets Philip Jeffries, a giant sort of teapot Philip Jeffries.
Right.
He's literally barking at Philip Jeffries, who is Judy? Who is Judy? And my friend Josh, I hadn't seen the episode yet, but my friend Josh, who snuck in to that event with me, he's blowing up my phone. He's like, you have to watch this now. And my brain just exploded.
Oh my gosh.
It was just the most surreal thing.
But you take away what you can from the show with your personal experiences. Your personal experiences play a big part in what you take away from the show, I think. And everybody has different personal experiences because we're going to look at a piece of art. You and me are going to see this piece of art differently based off of our own experiences. Well, I like the red in that. Well, I like the blue in that. This reminds me of this or whatever. And that's what he counts on. So if somebody's doing like a 4-hour podcast of the show, it's really their interpretation of the show.
Course. Absolutely.
Right?
Well said.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty is that we take away what we want to from it. And he doesn't want to take that away from you.
No.
That's part of your gift.
That certainly enhanced my experience of watching The Return because it was like Kyle MacLachlan is saying in that scene almost verbatim what I had said to David Lynch. And I'm just sitting there like at home watching this by myself. And I'm like, are Kyle MacLachlan and I, are we merging? Are we becoming the same? Is he in my head? What's happening?
See, synchronicity. There's a lot of those. There's a ton of those.
Yeah. Anyway, you were very nice to indulge that story. But
oh, no, that is really cool.
Well, speaking of Mark Frost, Mary, you've probably seen this. I hope you've seen this. I want to read a message that was recently reposted on Blue Sky Social by series co-creator Mark Frost. It was written on February 6, 2025 by a user named Percolator Pete. And it
I think I know what you're going to say, but I'll see.
Yeah, and the message reads, in no universe that makes any kind of sense should I have more followers than Mary Reber, who preserves the Palmer House legacy and is a treasure to the Twin Peaks fan community. And Mark Frost reposted that, so he clearly agrees with that sentiment.
Wow, I didn't see that. Say that again. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, this is okay.
Wow.
So this is a guy named this is the guy who goes by Percolator Pete on Blue Sky. I don't know Percolator Pete, but he writes, in no universe that makes any kind of sense should I have more followers than Mary Reber, who preserves the Palmer House legacy and is a treasure to the Twin Peaks fan community.
Aw, that's really sweet.
Mark Frost reposted that and clearly agreed with that. I had assumed you'd probably seen that, but
I haven't seen that. Oh, that is really sweet. That's really touching. That's really nice. Because I really respect Mark Frost a lot.
I do too.
So he's really, he just, I don't know, he just added a whole lot to it. And I wish he'd get the kudos because he really deserves it.
I agree. Mary, I wanted to ask you, what does the fan community mean to you? I mean, you have been so generous and you have opened your home to so many fans who love this show and who love this world. And I mean, you and I were talking off mic a little bit for just a few minutes before we started. You've had people from all walks of life, from different countries, who want to visit the Palmer House. And this is your home. It's not just a film set. You live here, and you have just been so open and generous with the fans. And I just wanted to ask what this all has meant to you personally.
Without sounding trite, it's just as much for me as it is for them. If it were me, I'd want to see it. I'm really basically I'm not going to say I'm religious, but I am very spiritual.
Sure.
So this is a thing that has been gifted to me. A house is a thing. It's not a person. And I feel like if there's any way that you can add some joy, especially in these days, add some joy to people's lives. If you could see just when people come in, what this means to them, how can you not do it? It actually, people come in and they're nervous.
Yeah.
And they're nervous and they're people that have watched it from the beginning.
Yeah.
And this just means a lot to them. I mean, I have a lot of people crying.
Yeah.
I do present my son's story about him passing away, but that also opens up in them a vulnerable spot where they feel like, I would say 75 to 80%. I mean, everybody's had trauma.
Yes.
But 75 to 80% of people who come through here have had some major trauma. David Lynch and Mark Frost have reached through their art to people to hit them in the most vulnerable spot.
Yes.
And that's things that have been done to them or something that they're working through. And you kind of glom onto that. So when David Lynch passed, I've heard people say things like, I feel like I lost a dad.
Yeah.
Because he meant so much. It's like they felt he could see their pain.
Yeah.
And not everybody sees your pain. People are, I don't know. I mean, it just seems like people are a little more selfish than they used to be. Bottom line, if you can do something to make people happy, do it. Do it. And it's just, I have boundaries though. I'm a very empathic person, but I've had to learn boundaries through all this.
Oh, sure.
And for me too, I mean, I've had to heal through a bad marriage that has not been a great one. And in many ways, I won't go into detail about that. But,
sure, of course.
And then a son passing, and it just kind of, you can either, I hate the term, you can get bitter or better, but I feel like this whole thing has bettered me in a way. It's been a gift for me too. Because I mean, how else would I meet somebody from Serbia, somebody from Japan, somebody from learning their cultures, seeing how happy you're making these people feel. And these are pilgrimages for people. They come just for Twin Peaks.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you're right. I really like the way that you said that, Mary. I think there's something about this show and this world that Mark Frost and David Lynch created. The story of Laura Palmer is an exploration of trauma and loss. And it is told in a way that is deeply entertaining, but it is not trite. It doesn't make it a joke or a TV show it explores trauma in a very genuine and authentic way. Mm-hmm. And I think probably back in the 90s when the show and then later Fire Walk With Me came out, that must have been at least a little off-putting for some folks because we weren't used to seeing that in TV.
Right.
But it really speaks to a real human experience that a lot of people go through and that we don't always talk about. And I think there can be something really cathartic about that, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, Cheryl, I'm not saying, now these are not her words verbatim, but she basically said, we didn't win a lot of awards when Fire Walk With Me came out. And Mark basically says the same thing. A hunk of metal doesn't mean anything when you touch people's lives.
Yeah.
That's your award. You don't need the hunk of metal to tell you that. So basically, Cheryl, and this is not her quote verbatim, but she just basically said, I would totally forego these awards knowing that people have something that kind of speaks to them about their pain. It's raw. I mean, David doesn't candy coat anything about this.
No, he doesn't.
Incest or sexual abuse or anything.
Right.
And she said, just for these people to have an opportunity to come to you, it's a privilege for you to stand there and let them share their most intimate details of their lives with somebody they hardly even know. And I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I always ready for it? Not necessarily, but I understand grieving because I've lost my parents, I've lost my son. I understand grieving, and I know that everybody's experienced some trauma in their life.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they come up these stairs. I'll sometimes stand inside and watch them walk up, and they'll imitate Cooper and Carrie walking up the stairs, which is kind of cute. And they walk through and they're very nervous. So what I say is they're nervous. They're facing what happened here, in this house. We chat, we have great conversation. We talk a little bit about trauma, and they leave. And it's kind of like a feeling of redemption almost.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I kind of call this a place of redemption kind of, because hopefully it's a good experience for them rather than because they're able to chat about things, that they wouldn't normally chat about. If you appreciate somebody that has passed, take those things and send them back out again.
Yeah.
Like David would appreciate the fact that people are doing this for other people. He's all about peace and love, about peace and love.
And transcendental meditation, Mary.
Oh, meditation. Yes. That's right. Which was really a big part of his life.
It certainly was. But I just think those are beautiful sentiments. I love the way that you said that. And I think that one of the ways that we heal is by processing our pain. And I think art can, in its own way, help do that. And it sounds like you have been part of helping folks do that through their love of the show and their love of this world and the love of the story. And I think your generosity and hospitality has helped people along their own journey of healing. I just think it's a beautiful thing. I love that so much.
Yeah, I mean, and I do... In this day and age, a lot of people don't like people, but I genuinely like people. And it's kind of my terms. It's still my home.
Yes.
I still have certain time frames. I protect myself with my time, but I really enjoy the visits. My daughter will always ask me, my daughter Caitlin, she'll say, how did your tour go today? And I'll just say, it was really good. And I feel energized.
Oh, that's good.
There's a few who come through and you're like totally like wiped out, but you can tell when you've been energized, when you're not tired at all and you're ready to go again.
That's a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Reber appears as the iconic and mysterious Alice Tremond in the series finale of Twin Peaks: The Return, which aired on Showtime in 2017. If you're interested in learning more about the Palmer House or booking a tour with Mary, you can connect with the Palmer House online at www.visitpalmerhouse.com. Mary, I'm so honored that you've taken a few minutes to speak with us. It's been such a pleasure to get to connect with you. I just really appreciate you being a guest on the program.
Well, you're an awesome human. You're really easy to talk to. So thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me share a little bit too.
That's going to just about wrap it up for this episode of Don't Encourage This. My thanks again to my guest, Mary Reber, for joining us on the program. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, wherever you get the podcasts out of the thing. But, of course, you probably knew that because you're doing that right now. If you'd like to contact the show, you can send an email to don'tencouragethis@gmail.com. From Oxford, Ohio, I'm Mark Von Bullock. Thanks again.